people think and take permanent solutions to a temporary situation, and we don't know what he was going through. We don't know, and I think that they will indeed uncover some things as they continue their investigation. But it's just back to that mental health again. We have to make sure that not just us, but our loved ones are truly just covered with prayer, and that we're hearing and listening to them. As I move on today, do you guys see my gear? Oh my God. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I came home yesterday and saw a pretty pink bag on my door and this beautiful cap. When I looked inside, I was like, oh my God, it was from my neighbor, Betty. And I thank you, Betty, so much for this beautiful cap. I had seen her in a cap a couple of years ago, and I told her, oh, I love the cap. And we were talking about my battle with breast cancer at that time. I got my shirt on today. We support the girls, bust breast cancer. We've got to talk about this. I know you probably think this episode is not for you. I know you think that, oh boy, well, this doesn't pertain to me. But you know what? I know we all know somebody who's been through breast cancer. And I want to tell you, a little story that about myself. I last week I opened up and I put something on my Facebook page, and told you a little bit about my story. And I am a breast cancer survivor, but I'm going to say today I'm a breast cancer warrior, a survivor, a warrior. I praise God that I'm here. 2018, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and there are several different types of breast cancer. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this series as we cover this month. I think it's really important that we have these conversations. In October of 2017, I had discovered a lump in my breast when I was in the shower, and sometimes you feel weird. I don't want to be feeling on myself, but I'm really glad that I did do that self check. And I wasn't for certain about what I was feeling, but I'm glad I got to the doctor. But listen here, when I went to the doctor, they did a mammogram. And that's something I'm pushing. We've got to do our mammograms. That's part of self care and self check. I did a mammogram. They called me back because they saw something. And, they basically told me, well, it's a cyst in your breast. I took them at their word, but something within me later kept saying something else is going on. So they even had it checked over by a radiologist, and the radiologist, confirmed it was, just a cyst. I'm like, okay, so I've never been able to feel cysts in my breast. I did have a past diagnosis with cysts, but never being able to feel them. And so I'm sharing this story because I'm hoping I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to help several somebodies, I'm hoping, through my testimony of what I'm saying. And so it would come that after my 50th birthday, I couldn't lay down. I had caught a cold twice, within that couple of months, and I couldn't lay down. There was pain, no matter, and I'm a side sleeper. I know some people are back sleepers, but I'm a side sleeper. And I just couldn't lay down. And I sent a note to my primary care physician, my doctor, and I said, hey, I don't know, but I think something else is going on here, or this cyst maybe is ready to rupture. So he put in a note to the breast support center for me, to go in and visit them. And I did, and in March. And so they tried to lance, as they would say, the cyst. There's another word for it, can't think of it, but it was weird because I didn't realize that the doctor that I was seeing was actually a surgeon. And so she told me, I have seen thousands and thousands and thousands of cysts. And she began to measure, and she said, you know, your this cyst, when I'm measuring, has quadrupled in size. And so she tried to lance it. It's another word. It'll come to me. And it didn't, she was drawing blood. And she said, I'm not going to continue to try to do this anymore. She said, I'm going to send you over to the mammogram. And it was really late. It was towards closing time. And I remember going there. But I remember what she said before I left to go there. She said, I do not think that this is a cyst. I think this is breast cancer. And when she said that, it was like somebody had slapped my face in 0-degree weather, and I could still feel the prints of their fingers on my face. I remember texting my husband as I was getting ready to go to mammogram and ask him to please come to the hospital. Did mammogram, and of course they confirmed that what they saw was much larger and that it was breast cancer. I went back to that doctor's office, and I remember her talking and saying, "You can beat this. You're 50, you're young, you can beat this." And all I could think about was what a lot of people think about is when they're diagnosed with cancer, that cancer is a death sentence. And that's no lie. That's the first thing, if you're being honest, at least that's the first thing I thought about. And many people that I've talked to since then have said the same thing. You think I'm going to die. So, long story short, my husband came, she talked to me, she told me, we're going to go ahead and get a biopsy so we can see exactly what kind of breast cancer we're dealing with, so we can stage it. We're going to place markers in your breast. There was an overload of information. And if anybody's listening to me that has been through breast cancer or any type of cancer, you know that information coming to you, it's an overload. It's an overload. It was a lot for me to take in. Needless to say, I went through the biopsy. They again confirmed. And she had told me before I left her office, I could truly appreciate Dr. J, because she could have sent me back to my physician and just said, let him order the test, but she moved swiftly. She moved swiftly, and I think of nothing but the act of God in her doing that. And she said, if I have my way, you'll be in chemotherapy in the next couple of weeks. And so I had, told my husband, and I think she overheard me to say that I wasn't going to do chemotherapy. Because for me, I saw my great grandparents die of cancer, not breast cancer, different types of cancer. I saw my grandmother die of cancer, a different type of cancer. So I just thought, no, I'm just going to just live with this and live and abide my time. It would be 3 to 4 days later before I found out the results of the biopsy, and I was at home when she called and she confirmed that it was breast cancer, and it was an invasive type of carcinoma, and it was an aggressive type of cancer. And I was by myself when I got that diagnosis. But how many of you know we're never by ourselves? We're never alone. And so I remember keeping it together, going out with my family to dinner, never breathing a word to them until we all came back home later that night. And I think it took my daughters, by surprise because we had been out. And I wanted to tell everybody together so I didn't have to repeat the story. It still felt like it was a bad dream I was walking through. But I had told them I had made a decision. I wasn't going to take chemotherapy. You know, my youngest daughter, she heard me. They both were graduating that year, one from 8th grade, the other one from college. She had gotten her bachelor's degree in nursing and was completing that. This was a terrible time for something like this. I felt in a very unfair time for something like this to happen. All the plans I had to table those plans because now my priority had to be in focusing on how I was going to deal with this. So my youngest daughter, who, if you know my children, you know me, you know that my oldest daughter is Faith. That's her name, and my youngest daughter's name is Miracle. And so, of course, neither one of them. Faith was telling me, I'm not going to go back finish school. I'm like, you're too close. You're going to go back. You have done too much to work towards your career. I told my family we were going to go on as normal. And I remember that Monday, because that call came on a Friday. I remember that Monday, um, my daughter came in from school and I was sitting at the table, wasn't crying. They had been through a whole weekend of just crying, crying, crying. And I wasn't crying. I was sitting there doing something. And my youngest daughter, Miracle, she doesn't talk much. Miracle is a listener. She's more introverted, but when she speaks, you listen. And I remember Miracle went up to do her homework and she came back down the stairs and she said to me, and it was weird because we had just seen, um, a movie, and I can't think of the movie with Bozeman,
Black Panther.
Black Panther, chemo brain, I call it sometimes, for everyone else. And you mean to tell me when it comes to fighting for you that you're just going to give up? She was like, no, Mom, you are a warrior. So act like it. She then went back to her room, sat down as if nothing had happened. And I sat there for a minute and I was like, oh my God. I went to her and I said, what are you saying? And she said, I'm saying, you are a warrior. Act like it. I stood there because, again, Miracle doesn't talk much. But it was a sternness in her voice. I said, well, Miracle, I already told the surgeon, earlier, and on Friday that I wasn't going to do chemo. Are you saying that I need to do chemotherapy? She said, Mom, you are a warrior. And so, with that said, I took that as that God was speaking through my child and telling me and directing me and ordering my steps as to what He wanted me to do. I went and I picked up the phone and I called the surgeon and I got her voicemail. And at first, I wasn't going to leave a message, but then I left a message and I said, it's Merle Huckabee. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to consider taking chemo. Will you give me a call and set up the oncology appointment, that you were going to schedule? I remember the phone ringing 5 minutes later and she called back. She was on her way out of the office. She told me she normally would not turn back, but she heard her phone ring. And she said, I came back and she said, I listened to your message and I had to call and tell you. I am so happy to hear that you chose and made this decision. I have to tell you that I went back and I told my daughter, I even told my family, do you know what chemotherapy is going to do to me? It is going, my hair is going to come out. It is, I watched this take my grandparents. I watched cancer take my great grandparents. And all my youngest daughter could say is, you are a warrior. My family stood behind me, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm on the other side of it. But I'm here to tell you that that journey to the other side is not an easy journey. If you have a family member who is currently going through cancer, breast cancer, any type of cancer, and they go to chemo, I want you to know that's not an easy decision, nor is it easy on the body. I remember, and I still have the scars. I have scars on me today where, um, they told me that I wasn't going to be able. I had to get on 5 different drugs. One thing that I, told my doctor at that point in time, I said to her, you know, I just didn't see chemo working for my great grandparents and my grandparents. And she said, hold on, how long ago was that? And I said, well, 1975 was one, 1988 was another. And she said, let me just stop you there. 1995 was the other. She said, do you know medicine has come a long way since then? So I visited the oncologist. She told me what I was in for. I didn't totally understand, and I want you to know that that's another thing. When all of this information is coming to that person who has this diagnosis, it's an overload, it's a lot. And so I say all of that to say that the journey for me was not an easy journey. I thought they were going to be infusing these 5 medications through my veins, through my arms. I later learned I had to get a port put in through, they put it in through your chest and run a wire up your neck. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to sleep with this thing? I mean, there were so many things freaking me out, and the devil was constantly talking, saying, you can't do this. See? And I have to tell you, I had to get into the frame of mind to begin to fight this disease if I ever was going to win. And so I had to just calm down. I had to just go to my word. How many of you know that the Bible, your word is your weapon? And I had to go to the word of God to get that comfort that I needed. This is not a subject that people like to talk a lot about. I couldn't talk to a lot of people about it. Hell, I couldn't, it just for me, it was tough. This is a tough subject to talk about. And when it's stripping you, it strips you of basically all of your looks, your features, your pride, everything that you have, it strips you of because you know what? Going through chemo, I had to do that for a year. Infuse, they would take my blood through the port. They would do my treatments through the port. Glad for that port because my veins would have been totally, and they were trash anyway after, going through chemotherapy. And I was grateful for the port to know that they could just take blood through that, and people coming up with that kind of invention. I want to say to you, though, that chemotherapy is not easy on you. You lose your hair. I think if you go back and look at what I posted, I just showed you a portion. My hair didn't come out the traditional way. Um, After my first treatment, my hair was still on my head. I probably lost my hair closer to the third treatment. And they have different things. They say you can do a cold cap to kind of help with that. Some people have success with it, some people don't. I got to the point that when my hair came out, I was actually washing my hair, and I remember getting out the shower that day, and my hair was just, it was like somebody braided my hair up. I had washed my hair, and I had heard people say, well, your hair is probably going to hit the floor in the shower. I was waiting for that moment, but it didn't quite happen like that. Everything is a little different sometimes for everyone else, but I remember being in tears because I got dressed and I went to comb my hair, and I couldn't even get a comb through my hair. And it frustrated me so bad that I just was in tears because I was trying to figure out what. And I took a mirror and looked, and I'm like, it's like somebody braided my hair. I didn't braid my hair. I know I'm not crazy. And my oldest daughter had called from college, and she was like FaceTiming me and like, Mom, let me see. And then she says, oh, Mom, why did you braid your hair? And I'm like, I didn't braid my hair. I didn't braid my hair. And so my youngest daughter came in from school a little later, and she helped me, and she's like, Mom, did you braid your hair? No, I didn't braid my hair. you know this my hair had just binded up. So my youngest daughter took the comb, and I mean, it took her 45 minutes to get a small piece of hair, but as she was putting it through the comb, it was coming out in the comb. So I knew that this is how my hair was going to come out. If she had continued, and it probably would have took hours and hours. I knew the stage I was at. So my husband got his clippers. My sister, she's a beautician. She called. I let her see what was going on. She FaceTime and she said, we just have to go ahead and just cut your hair off. And, you know, it's weird because when you grow up with hair on your head and all of a sudden, it's not like I went and sat in a beauty chair at the beauty salon and said, okay, give me my 50-year haircut, my shortcut that I want for my 50th birthday. This was something that I had to do because if not, my hair was coming out one way or the other. That's hard. That's hard to face. That's hard to look in the mirror and see you're the same you, but you're not the same you. I don't know if that makes sense. You're looking now at a picture of yourself with no hair. People tell you, oh, you look great. I remember my sister when she cut my hair. Now I think she really loved to cut my hair. That's a whole nother story. Oh, look how beautiful. Don't you like your hair? Oh, look what I did, blah, 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 blah. And I couldn't look in the mirror. I couldn't look at myself. And it wasn't because I felt I was ugly. I felt like, my God, this disease is stealing and taking away from me my hair. It's taking away what a lot of people really do build on, and they think that they're their hair. I never really thought like that, but I never thought I would lose my hair and be forced to have to cut it off. Those are just some of the things. But not only did I go through that with chemotherapy, I'm going to post another picture when I find it. I lost weight. I lost weight. You can't eat when you're doing different types of chemotherapy. Some people said, "Oh, eat ice cream. You'll keep your weight on." You know, my daughters, Mom, let's go out and buy a wig. And I remember that day they wanted to go out and buy a wig, but I want to tell you that I wasn't comforted by that. I was comforted being with them. I let them pick out the wig. It looked similar to my hair. I tried it on, but just the part of me to accept all of this at once, it was hard to do. It's hard to do. So I want to tell you that if you have a loved one, a friend that's going through this, just know this is not easy. No matter what you say to them, they are going through this experience. And I have to be honest, you almost feel like you're alone. You feel like you're alone. I took 5 different drugs. They did that a year. And let me tell you this though, after the second treatment, do you know they could not feel the lump in my breast? I couldn't, when I went into, my doctor to visit, she said, oh my God, where's the lump at? Where's the lump? And I had to go back and look. And I'm like, oh God, I thank you. I thank you that you're working through this chemotherapy. I would pray every time that pole would come. I would pray and ask God to bless this medicine. And I said, why do I have to continue this? Why do I have to continue? If it's working, can you just go on in and get the tumor out? And the doctor said to me, no, it's like having a urinary tract infection. You know how some people would give them medicine for 7 to 10 days and they start feeling better after the third and the fourth day and they stop taking it. And so they like, oh, I'm good. And then it comes back down the road. We have to make sure that these cancer cells, that we are killing them. But how many of you know that killing cancer cells, they're also killing your good cells? This was truly a journey. And I remember my grandmother came to my mind. I remember seeing her sitting on the couch. And I remember telling my grandmother, she had just finished chemo. And I remember telling her, come on, get up. I know you can do it. Come on, it's in your mind. You know what? I regretted that at that moment because now I knew. Now I knew what it felt like to be going through this. Hell, she didn't have any energy because I didn't have any energy. Chemo zaps you of everything. I I went on to continue this journey for a year. It was not easy. It was not easy. It was not easy. But oh, let me tell you. Let me tell you what brought me through. Nobody but God. Nobody, prayer warriors. Prayer warriors. I had friends praying for me. I have friends who were sending me texts, encouraging, inspirational. I didn't really want to go around anybody. I have to be honest with you. I didn't want to be around anybody. I had my family. My family was supporting me. But sometimes again, you feel like you're alone. As I finished up my chemotherapy, then I would go through the surgery. Then I now had to be faced with 33 rounds of radiation. Now, radiation isn't as bad as chemotherapy. In my case, they ended up cutting it down to 16 because they felt I didn't need all 33 rounds. The radiation doesn't hurt, but it still takes a toll on your body. The chemo is what zapped me of everything, but I praise God that I'm not my hair. I praise God that I could let all of that go because I would rather be here talking to you today. My hair isn't the same. I mean, it's back though. It's more than what I had in terms of a year ago. But I praise God because I learned that I'm not my hair. And there's more important things to worry about, like fighting for your life and staying here. And one day I sat on my floor, and I'm going to continue part of my journey next week because I want to bring my brother Phil in to talk about some things. But I just want to tell you, I was sitting on the floor one day and I was crying. And you know what I said? God, if I could just bag up all of my worldly possessions, all my valuables, every cent I had in the bank, everything that was valuable, and take it and put it in this bag and take it to the doctor and say, heal me. Can you guarantee me a healing? Can you guarantee I'm going to be healed from this? And that's when I really realized that all this material stuff we have, we like it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you're battling cancer. It doesn't matter when you're going through a fight of your life because the only person that can guarantee you a healing is God. He brought me through. I learned about this book, uh, Joel Osteen. A lot of you all know Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen's mom wrote this book called Healed from Cancer. It has almost every healing scripture in it. I took that along with my Bible and I read it daily because if any of you all know her story, she had cancer, I think stage 4 liver cancer 40 years ago, darn near, and she's still here. And she says she spoke these healing scriptures over herself. I began to speak healing scriptures over myself and to change my mindset. The takeaways that I want you to take away from here is this. I want you to know that breast cancer is real. My mom didn't have it. My grandmother didn't have it. There was no lineage or lineage genetically. I was the first person to have it. Now, my great grandmother had it. But when I was talking to the doctor, they don't genetically link your great grandparents. It's more like your grandmother, your mother. So it starts somewhere. I want you to do self checks. I want you to get in a shower and feel men and women because it can happen to men too. Do many of you all know Richard Roundtree, the black actor who played the original Shaft? He's a breast cancer survivor. Yes, breast cancer is not just for women, majority, yes, but there are men who are diagnosed with breast cancer. I want you to know that that loved one needs your love, not only while they're going through, because they're going to have many scars afterward. Breast cancer, like any cancer, is not just a physical journey. It's an emotional, it's a mental journey, it's a spiritual journey because you gotta get in there and fight if you want to stay here. There are many people who have been diagnosed with breast cancer and they're not here today. For whatever the reason, they're not here. But I thank God that I am. And I thank God that He carried me through this journey so I can be here to share it with you. They give you the 5 year survivorship. And I remember when I went in for my mammogram, get your mammogram. That's another takeaway. Schedule a mammogram. If you haven't had a mammogram, I talked to a nurse last year who had never had a mammogram and had worked in the gynecology obstetrics area. You would be shocked. Get a mammogram. Don't be afraid because it could save your life. If you feel a lump, if you feel like something is wrong, even in any diagnosis, like I felt, push, keep pushing, advocating for yourself until something happens. Because the chances are, if that little voice is saying there's something wrong, it generally is. But I'm here to tell you that God is awesome. He's a healer. I'm grateful. I don't sweat these small things because a lot of this is small compared to what God can do. God is a healer. He can heal me from cancer. I'm not going to say that I didn't worry about COVID because I didn't, because I knew that same God who brought me through cancer brought me through COVID, and He would do that. That's how big our God is. I want to tell you, get a mammogram, schedule your mammogram, get yourself checked out. Do you know in 2020, I was reading through the American Cancer Society. In 2020, there were 2.3 million women diagnosed with breast cancer. 2.3 million women diagnosed with breast cancer. And there were 685,000 deaths. Do the math. 685,000 deaths. COVID is kind of running with those statistics right now too, but that's another conversation. The American Cancer Society estimates for breast cancer in the United States for 2021 that there will probably be about 281,550 new cases of invasive breast cancer that will be diagnosed in women, and about 49,290 new cases of ductal carcinoma will be diagnosed. And about 43,000 women will die from breast cancer in 2021. The statistics are going down a bit because people are becoming more aware. And that's why I could not let October go by without talking about this subject. We Black women, not to say that white women and no other race and no other culture doesn't get it, because they do, but we're the ones who it is more prevalent among. And again, men can get it too. So I want you all to schedule a mammogram if you have done so already and you've already did your check. God bless you. I'm glad. Continue to do that. Continue to check yourself. It could save your life. It could truly save your life. And know that breast cancer is not just physical. You deal with emotional and mental scars afterwards. I can tell you that I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, not with my clothes off, for a long time because of the scars I have. There are different options for different people. We're going to talk more about that because I'm going to bring an expert in the room to talk about breast cancer later this month in our series. And we're going to break it down what breast cancer is. But if you want more information, go to the American Cancer Society. They AmericanCancerSociety.org or the Susan B. Komen, that's KOMEN, Breast Cancer Foundation. Both of them offer a plethora of resources and information. Matter of fact, the Susan B. Komen Foundation, they have support where they offer trained oncology social workers as well as guidance to local resources Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They also launched HER, which is the Health Equity Revolution, um, to improve breast cancer outcomes in the Black community. A lot of people think, well, if I don't have insurance, I can't fight it. That's a lie. There are many resources and ways that you can get the help you need. But first of all, start with taking care of yourself and doing self care and self check. I'm going to end this conversation about breast cancer. Right now, I'm going to bring my brother Phil in. I hope that you got something from this today. And I hope that somebody out there listening to me that knows what they need to do will go and do it. Now I'm going to join my brother Phil. Phil?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah. How you like my hat, Phil? How you like my
I'm
hat?
loving it.
How
I'm
you
loving
like
it. That's
I couldn't
that's
get a tam. Like
huh?
my hat. I couldn't get a tam.
Look, that's as much that serves as much importance or more than the one I'm wearing.
That's hey, not true. Not true. That's your service. You did service. But
Yeah, and trust me, the fight against breast cancer is
oh, I know.
well. I think we've discussed it before. I'm not uh, let your viewers know if they haven't heard before. See, my mother died of breast cancer.
You told me, you shared that with me. That
Yeah,
had to be tough. That
yeah,
had to be tough
and
to while
And if
watch.
they had mammography, then she'd still be here.
Wow. What did you say?
If they had mammography back in 1970, she'd still be here.
Thank
You know,
God for technology.
if people if they would have known what they know now about doing self examinations, going to the doctor, doing preventive medicine,
Yes.
you know, because we didn't, the generations before us weren't taught to take care of themselves that way. Hell, we were barely taught it, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And one, I commend the fight. I commend you, Merle, for fighting, because there are some that don't even think it's worth the battle. Uh,
Yeah, I
and
did.
and I tell you, living is worth it. See, living is God's gift. The greatest gift God gave everybody is the gift of life.
Yes.
It's what we
Yes.
do. It's what we do in that life and who we influence in that life. For when we go home, that's what's most important. I repeat Martin Luther King's words that the promise is not for a long life, but for a meaningful one.
Yes. Absolutely.
And this month, you said the numbers, and I was listening to your 2020 comparison. You said that there were 600,000 cases diagnosed in 2020. We didn't reach 600,000 deaths from COVID until 2021.
It was 685,000 deaths. Yep.
Oh, deaths.
Yes, it
That's
was
thank
600. If I
you.
said that wrong, it was 2.3 million women who were diagnosed with breast
Oh,
cancer in
yeah.
2020. Yeah.
So actually, there was literally in 2020 close to 100,000 more deaths from breast cancer than there was COVID,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's one portion of the population. The COVID affected everybody, but women especially targeted in this devastating fight. One, quite honestly, it just what you talk about and what we see every day ties into what's going on with our leadership all
Yes.
the time. This is why do we want to put so much in the infrastructure bill into education?
Yes.
Because you never know who's going to be the next Louis Pasteur or Madame Curie of technology that cures this thing.
Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
can cure it. See, there is a cure.
I believe that.
There is a cure.
Yeah.
One, and you're right, it is God.
Nobody but.
It is God. But
Nobody but.
but are we acting right as humans? Are we treating each other right in this country, especially the so-called moral leader in the world? Are we acting right and doing the right things to come to the answers?
That's right.
See, a lot of people ask the wrong questions. Well, why don't we have this? How come you didn't invest in somebody that
Absolutely.
probably could have had the answer years ago. And this is why I've been so damn so
No, go ahead. Go
sorry.
ahead. Uh-huh.
This is why I've been so adamant about this thing.
Uh-huh.
See,
Potty mouth, potty mouth. Uh-huh. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Potty mouth, brother. I know. No, you say
Well,
how you feel. I understand.
something it has to come from the heart, and you can't
I know.
contain.
I know.
But I broke down the numbers the other day as far as this darn infrastructure bill. For those of you who didn't get to watch my broadcast on that, you have to let's put things in perspective.
Yes. They
The
really dragging
government,
their feet on this one. Go on.
the government of the United States has an annual revenue, taxes, individual income tax and big business tax, which, by the way, was $2.2 million in individual income tax collected last year versus a little bit over 220 billion. Understand, 2.2 trillion from individuals, 222 billion from big businesses last year.
Wow. Wow.
You talk, that issue about people having issues with big business not paying their fair share.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Now, the government has an annual income of 3.5 trillion with a T.
Right.
The infrastructure bill is as it may survive at 3.5. I'm hoping because the more they do, the better they do. I'm hoping it stands at 3.5 trillion. Now that's 1 year of the government income. However, what people are misinterpreting is the $3.5 trillion bill that they are proposing is over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's $350 billion a year for the American people and to build a middle class and give people something to look forward to, give people hope to make the next level, to get their kids educated, to have the time to go to and get this job that they seem to not be able to fill.
It's an investment.
It's okay. It would represent the greatest investment of the American people in the history of the United States.
Absolutely.
Now, understand with those numbers, that's 10% annually of the federal budget. This military that I served gets an annual budget of $700 billion a year.
700?
That is double what they are talking about giving the American public.
Wow.
So that's 20% of the annual income of our federal government through your taxes and mine.
Mm-hmm. 20%.
20%.
Mm-hmm.
And if, hopefully it goes through the infrastructure bill, that's 10%. 20 plus 10 is 30.
30, yep.
What out of 70%?
Oh, you saying it nice. I thought you was going to really.
I wasn't,
This ain't
me.
70%, right?
Where the 70? Where that? We don't see it.
You're real cool about that.
But if over 40 years, if we'd have put whatever that 70% is into education, into roads, into bridges, into internet, into technology, into keeping people out of poverty and off the streets and kids not being hungry, could you imagine where we'd be?
Yes.
That's why when you say to me, somebody who's looked at the numbers and understand $3.5 trillion has been going on since I looked in it 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the government made a little bit less, $3.4 trillion.
So a little bit less.
because of COVID, probably.
Yeah.
But they've been averaging that every year since 20 years ago.
So are we not worth it?
That's the question.
You
This is
brought
the
up in
question.
you brought up in your broadcast about what they spent in Afghanistan.
Yeah, they brought it. 20 years, $2 trillion. Let's break that down to $100 billion, $100 billion a year in a country the size of Texas with 39 million people. We got 330 million people here. This is money from you and me.
That's right.
And we're not worth the investment of our leadership.
But we are.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Because
And
we're
in
still.
1970, you just finished telling me that your mother would be alive if they had mammography machines.
If they'd invested back then some of this government money that we don't know where it's going into research and technology and medical, look what we've done in 50 years.
Yes.
Now imagine if the government were fully engaged like they are in China. For the last 20 years, you can go to China if you're an English teacher and make $100,000 a year.
Yeah. And some people do it too.
Yep.
I didn't understand why. I used to hear that and I was like, well, why are they going all the way over there?
Because they want first rate teachers. I seen 60 Minutes. They had a show and they had these kids on there. They was rubbing their head. Their kids was like 4, 5 years old.
Wow.
6 maybe. They speak 7 languages.
Well, they invest in education.
They invested not only in education, they invested in their infrastructure. However, they still got to work on that EPA thing. Yellow Beijing ain't what I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, I know.
Y'all remember the Beijing Olympics. All you saw was reports on this, you can't watch the race because it was so yellow. But if they can do that for the people, they can definitely do that for the EPA if they want to.
Right.
But what we choose as leadership, when you got Joe Manchin in Arizona's Senator Kirsten Sinema, going against what the people that voted for them want to, is that not contempt? If I drive up and somebody say, you know what, I need you to do this for me. If you sign this, that means you're gonna handle my business for me. If you sign this power of attorney, whatever. And in that, I got so much darn revenue to draw off on. $2 million. Let's go for that. If I say, okay, I'm going to spend this $2 million exactly as you instructed me to, but I take 1.75 million of that and spend it on myself in my self-interest, that's called fraud.
Right, absolutely.
So when we vote for these leaders and they go against our interests and what we voted for them for, we voted for Sinema, we voted for Joe Manchin, we voted for all these Democratic leaders and unfortunately Republican leaders to do our bidding. And even the Republican leadership won't do what 70% of the people that they voted for said to do. Gun control, immigration reform,
right.
Find these cures, invest in us. They won't do it.
Yes.
They won't talk down the NRA. They won't talk down these darn conspiracy theorists who seem to have the microphone of most media circuits in the country than everybody else. Huh?
That's what that particular media, the media wants you to know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're new, see, news used to be Walter Cronkite.
Yes.
Walter Cronkite come up there and he don't care who he is, Republican or Democrat, black, blue, green, LGBTQ, whatever, Martian. He didn't care. This would happen. There it is. You make your own decisions on what this information, this data brings you.
Right.
I still remember watching the Vietnam War when I was a child with my father. on the news, seeing some of the atrocities, seeing some of the ugliness of life. And it just right now, during these times, some things that go on just remind me of that. Here in the United States,
Yeah.
everybody was talking about pulling out of Saigon and pulling out of Afghanistan has so many comparisons. No, they didn't.
Right.
No, they didn't.
Right.
We did what we had. Joe Biden did what he had to do. Bottom line. Obama didn't do it. What's his name? Didn't do it. Said he was.
Yeah.
Ran on it. Didn't he? Ran on it. Didn't do a thing.
He's so busy trying to undo the vote and think he's supposed to get back into the White House. Bless his
Uh-huh. But here's the thing about that. You look at the latest polls. Look at the latest polls, and you got to question who they polling.
Right.
The people who say that they want him to run again in 2024. See, this is what America's consciousness really needs to take a look at. We need to take a look at ourselves and see what's important. Not only is it more important for our kids to fill these 9 million jobs that they can't seem to fill,
right,
and giving, and parents who are trying to find work but can't get nobody to watch their kids. The bill says, you know what, we're going to help you pay for daycare. We're going to help you pay the daycare workers a decent wage so they can help your kids become next generation, next evolution in mankind. That's what we need. That's what we should be working. People call that progressive.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I call it evolution. Because as parents, we're supposed to want what for our kids more than what we ever could dream of.
Right. We want the best.
The best.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you right now, as the richest nation on this planet, I think we should demand it.
Yeah, we got to hold our leaders accountable.
We have to hold our leaders
accountable.
Because when they go in there,
tax dollars that are going into there.
Exactly. And when we vote for somebody to do certain things, see, there are public servants. That's where people got it mixed up. They work for us. We the boss. But if I go in there and tell them to do something, if I get somebody out of my yard and tell them I want a tree cut down, they cut down my bush, they fired, right?
Yes.
So we vote these people in the office. So when they go in there and do something completely contrary to what we voted for them for, is that not the same thing as me misusing that $1.5 million out of $2 million that I was supposed to go for, or this dude's cutting down my bush when I told him to cut down that tree? Is that not? And now here it is, voter fraud. Fraud is misrepresenting what you're supposed to do with the resources given to you. Correct.
Correct.
Voter fraud.
Yeah,
so this
brother,
is,
we have so much to continue to talk about, these school shootings, all of that.
Oh, we
done ran out of time again.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I probably took up a lot of time today, but I felt that,
No. You right. That's a story that needs to be told.
I want people to know, as we wrap up and conclude, we've got to talk about matters is what we're talking about. This is real news. This is we're keeping it real here.
And it's all interconnected.
It is. It's very much interconnected, But my brother Phil, I gotta go. Before they cut us off, I gotta go. But we're gonna continue this conversation on our next show. We're gonna talk about these school shootings and about, should we defund the police? Because I want to know who they called when those shots rang out. I know it wasn't the Ghostbusters. So,
Well, it's not who you call, it's the character that you call.
That's it. So we got a lot to continue, and the conversation definitely will continue. I thank you so much for coming on, my brother.
My pleasure.
We always, you always keep your ear to the ground. Close us out and tell us one of my favorites by Petey Green.
Well, y'all know me. I tell it to the hot, I tell it to the cold. I tell it to the young, and I tell it to the old. Don't want no laughing, no crying. Most of all, no signifying. Those words by the late, great Petey Green. God's love to you all.
Thank you, my brother. And viewers, with that, I'm going to bid you a good evening and thank you so much for watching Real Talk. Later this month, we will continue our series on breast cancer awareness. I'm going to be bringing survivors, I'm going to be bringing some experts in the room. Until then, if you haven't done it already, please schedule your mammograms. Continue to do self care and self check. Be blessed and have a great and safe weekend. Thank you again for joining Real Talk. Have a good evening.